Life, Death, Angels, a poet with mystifying visions. William Blake, a genius in the arts and literature, expressed his visions of the supernatural through poems and paintings that people of his time found highly peculiar. He was unrecognized as an artist and a poet, but his works are now favored by modern critics. William Blake's expression of his idiosyncratic imagination significantly impacted the literary movement Romanticism.
William Blake was born in Soho, London on November 28, 1757. He was the son of a hosier, along with 6 other siblings. However, 2 of his siblings died young, one which he was closest to the most. His parents were not proud of his visions, especially his father, but his mother would try to prevent her husband from beating William due to his strange ability. Nonetheless, both his parents were supportive of his artistic talent.
Like the natures of a romantic writer, William Blake was not a fan of urbanization and frequently wandered into the surrounding countryside of London. His works were heavily influenced by the spiritual visions he claimed to have, as well as personal experiences and ideas he had nurtured with a religious mind.
One of William's most intriguing poems is called The Garden of Love, which displays the elements of death, love, and the possible restrictions associated with religion. The narrator walks through the Garden of Love and sees a chapel that was built where he used to play as a child. As the narrator turns around, the beautiful flowers he previously describes were turned into tombstones and priests dressed in black gowns walking around, binding his joys and desires into shrubs. This poem can be interpreted as William Blake stating his views on religion and its limitations. As the narrator approaches the chapel, he states, "And the gates of this chapel were shut, and thou shalt not writ over the door." The chapel's gates being shut shows that religion comes with restrictions on what a person can and cannot do. William disagreed with the institutions and constraints associated with certain religion. The ending of the poem shows a similar message. "And I saw it was filled with graves and tombstones where flowers should be, and priests in black gowns were walking their rounds, binding with briars my joys and desires." The priests dressed in black represent religion, and as they take the narrator's desires and bind them to something else, Blake is trying to state that religion suppresses one's joys and desires. Elements of romanticism are displayed through the emotion felt, the imagination of the narrator, the love of nature, and the rebellious views Blake was portraying.
William Blake was a man who went through an overwhelming heartbreak. To his audience, he tells of this experience in his poem, "Never Seek to Tell Thy Love." Blake advises his readers of just this, to never seek to tell thy love. He goes into a tale of his personal experience that led to rejection, devastation, and loneliness. He bares his heart to a girl, tells her of his fondness for her, only for her to be disgusted, turning around and leaving him, trembling cold in ghastly fears, she doth depart. But as he watches her leave, heartbroken, suddenly a feeling comes over him. He makes a realization. A traveler came by, silently, invisibly. What has happened has happened. He has lost his love because of his admittance of feelings, but that is that. And now all he can do is warn others of the pain he felt. At first glance, this story may seem just that, a story of lost love. Yet with a deeper look into his personal life, one can see this was written as a metaphor for the rejection in his life as well. As aforementioned, Blake lived in a household in which his special ability, something that made him stand out, was rejected by the one who raised him, which he was punished for. Furthermore, although his parents did support his creativity, some of his works were rejected by society. No matter the case, Blake was constantly being rejected in his home life and work life, leading him to rejecting the typical standards set by society.
Though William Blake's literary works were mostly sinister and dark, his poem Infant Joy is a lively piece that concentrates on the happy moments between a mother and her infant child. Sweet joy, but 2 days old. The baby is the mother's purest form of joy. This relates to Blake's mother, who lost her own 2 forms of joy as 2 of her babies died shortly after their birth. The mother is admiring her newborn and states how joyful she is to have the baby in her arms. Blake's focus on the mother and the newborn emphasizes the romantic ideal of youth. The narrator states, "Pretty joy, sweet joy, but 2 days old, sweet joy I call thee, thou dost smile." Besides the mother's amusement with the baby, she is grateful to feel such joy for something that is so young and new. This poem is a breath of fresh air in comparison to his usual somber and complex poems, which show his versatility as a poet. In Infant Joy, he takes a much different approach by making the poem lighthearted and gentle.